Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Blah. Alan Robson with you. Thank you for joining me again a day early because we've had a few bleats about a certain football match tomorrow. And if it's anything like the last England game, it may be better forgotten. However, the Blah's on tonight. So thank you very much for gathering the clans. Appreciate the fact that you've done that. I know an awful lot of those of you that watch this show don't watch it at the time that the Blah goes out. You watch it at any time to suit you, and I don't blame you for doing that. Just means you can't hit me live. That's all. So we have a whole variety of stuff for you tonight, but we always start with a debrief by looking back over our shoulders at whatever happened last week. And Bothell, the noisiest of cemeteries, so it proved, and a host of amazing coincidences. There was two about Bothell that I thought were just mind-blowing. The story of two 7-year-olds, both called Jack, both dying on the same river at almost precisely 100 years apart. That's quite creepy. And the other thing, Yvonne seeing moving blackness. Now, this is interesting because some of you saw moving blackness too. We were talking about how Yvonne had visited the churchyard and she saw this moving blackness that freaked her and her partner out. And then as soon as they saw it, her husband said, "Oh, it's just like death." And then there was this big noise of a crash, and it was two cars hitting one another, a Beamer and a Ford Fiesta. Two people lost their lives, two ladies lost their lives in that. Two people actually died seconds after they'd said that. Now, on the back end of that moving blackness, Kate said, "I clearly saw that blackness. Just after the rain started easing, the blackness moves around the back of that lovely church. My husband spotted it and said, 'For F's sake, there it is.'" So it's there for you guys to see. Now, I saw patches of blackness. You don't know whether it's just natural, and I always try and rule out those kind of things quite early doors. Doesn't mean they're not some kind of thing that we should reference, but you can't center on it. You've got a whole night ahead, so you kind of got to press on. But Kate and husband, thank you very much and well spotted. Julie said, "I loved your show. I went to Bothell the following night and I heard a woman's voice say, 'Not another one.' And then you heard tutting. I was straight out of there. It was surprisingly threatening, and it was only about 7:20 in the evening. I then started to try and walk along the river too, but I'd already lost my bottle by then, so I ended up going back to the car and then to the pub, and I can't blame you for that." Eddie in Saltwell suggests, we've been doing what certain Geordie words and Geordie phrases mean, and more particularly where they came from. And we find an awful lot of Viking or Norse or Celtic. He says, "Why don't you do things that lots of Geordies never knew?" Now, it's not just Geordies listening. There's sort of people all over the world, but more particularly, you've got an awful lot of Geordies and Mackhams and Smoggies and Tykes and Pityakas. And so people from wherever you happen to be, whatever your tribe, you're more than welcome. This is things that people of the North, but we'll use the phrase Geordies just because it's comfortable, don't necessarily know. And I think you will know some of these. Not all of them, though. And here we go. The Geordie accent has been voted 7 times friendliest accent in the UK. There you go. Now, I've heard the Geordie accent being used horribly towards me throughout my life from time to time, but I still agree that we're probably, along with the Scots and along with the Irish, because they're the Celts, you see, we are the friendliest areas, definitely, in my humble opinion. Brown ale is the United States of America's biggest ale import. How about that? Cheryl Cole was a barmaid on the Tuxedo Princess. Our Cheryl. The Central Station was the first railway station anywhere in Britain to have a roof. There you are. Strange but true. And I've also thrown into this section one or two of your questions as well. Gary says, why are there cows on the town moor? Because it's not farmland. Well, about 800 years ago, not all that long after the Normans had conquered us, a right was granted by the Normans to the free men of Newcastle to allow them to graze their cattle, and they're still grazing the cattle. And they're only allowed 800 cows on there. So if you see 801, you can complain and get it stopped. And also, Hugh, H-O-O-G, Hugh, I'll say Hugh. He says, where is the gate that Gateshead is named after? It's not named after a gate. I know it's called Gateshead, but it's Anglo-Saxon accent from many a year back. It's Gateshead, goat's head. And it comes from the headland where there were a lot of goats being kept. Goats, a staple food stuff in the Northeast because it was cheap, and they breed like goats. They breed like crazy, so you get a lot of them. Goat's Headland. Where you going? I'm going to Goat's Headland. Goat's Head land. So you drop the land, Goat's Head. And it ended up being Gateshead. Anyway, there you go. It was a Saxon goat farm, essentially. Also, why is it called Newcastle? Which has to be, this is Hoog's second question, and it has to be one of the sillier ones. Well, because they got shot of the old castle, and they called it Newcastle. The second one, though, is interesting because it was actually built, or not physically, but ordered, instructed to be built by William the Conqueror's son, whose name was Robert Curthose. There you go. And its name before that, before it was a Newcastle, it was known as Pons Alius, Hadrian's Bridge, because Hadrian's surname is Alius. His full name, Publius Aelius Hadrianus. You just wouldn't want the end of your name to be Anus, but it was. You can't help that. Also, Claire says, I live in Northumberland. Why is our flag red and gold? And that really is a very good and sensible question. So thank you for it. It was claimed that that was the heraldic flag of the ancient kingdom of Bernicia that eventually would become Northumbria. That's not true. To be honest, the whole thing's made up because the church said that the Venerable Bede once, so now you see, when somebody says that somebody else saw, that somebody else said, it's Chinese whispers, you know it's made up, but this is the reason why it is red and gold. Someone in the church said that the Venerable Bede saw a flag draped over St. Oswald's coffin, and it looked a bit red and gold. This was in the 600s. So the church made it up, and somebody then made the flag and the stickers and all the stuff to go on the back of cars and what have you. And now for all time, it'll be red and gold. But it's not necessarily based on anything true. It's somebody in the church said that he said that they saw that he said it was over a coffin and it had kind of red and it had gold on it. Random, innit? Anyway, why is Four Lane Ends called that? Well, essentially, Four Lane Ends used to be an old crossroads. It used to be literally be a proper crossroads, plagued by highwaymen and robbers and rogues. It was originally 5 lane ends. It was a crossroads with an extra junction. Or that's what they said, because they believed that so many people died on 4-lane ends that the 5th lane was straight down to hell. So it was still a crossroads, but down the center of it, so many people died that there was an extra route to carry the souls of the dead down to hell. Bit dark back then. So it's 4-lane ends. It was never called 5-lane ends. Just they said at the time that there is a 5th road that you can take straight down. Other things. Why was the Metro Centre called the Metro Centre? Because it's not on the Metro, or it is now, but it wasn't at the time. And it was because the radio station was literally next door. So they called the whole place the Metro Centre. And we were plugging it for a year. I had a deal with Sir John Hall to help get it known and heard about. And by the time it opened, it was already doing pretty well. I wish it was doing that well now, but town and city centres are kind of closing down a bit. So different world. Lee Maria sent me an image, like a little mini video about Metro. David Johnson sent me the same thing. And the version that Lee Maria sent me, there was a lady doing like a voiceover on it, and says that now this is when it used to be amazing. Now radio is all dull and boring and all the same. And it is all the same, because the same shows literally going out on all of these so-called local stations. It's you cannot call it local radio anymore, which is tragic. Also, Lee Maria is also thinking of setting up a new almost second tier ghost historian site. She wants to call it Ghost Historian Splinters, where a splinter group goes off and they record things, send the best bits to me, and we'll put them out on the show. Happy to do that. I've got no qualms at all. If you guys want to have splinter groups and you send all your bits to us, happy to do it. Not an issue. And I know a lot of you do like little mini ghost hunts anyway. If you want to just send us a few of your best bits, we'll give you a plug. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Also, Adam sent in a very weird ghost picture. I do actually have this for you. So this is what Adam sent in. Boom. I don't know whether that guy's a golfer or just the thing that he's digging up looks kind of big and plastic. And whatever's behind him is downright peculiar. And the thing is, if that might be an anomaly on the picture rather than physically being there at the time, because usually dogs respond to any change in atmosphere and anything like that. And that dog's not noticed anything. Doesn't surprise me that a bloke wouldn't. I'm looking for me ball, man, ho. But it's good shot. Good shot indeed. So, other stuff. Heather offered me a part in a radio play. Just frankly got a bit much on at the present moment, but I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I think that's quite exciting to get involved with. And Heather has just become, if my memory serves, a new member as of today. Now, I believe her fella's been with us for a while, but Heather's with us now as well. Just saying that Sean's been with us for 52 months. Thank you very much, Sean. Brilliant. I know a few of you have too, so thank you for that. Jordan, still loving the stuff that you do. Great. Also, what about this? Alan, last week you were telling us about Normans, and the Normans being the area of France that was half Viking and half French. Is it all down to chromosomes? Yeah, of course. It's all completely down to chromosomes. If you're male, your chromosomes are XY. If you're female, your chromosomes are XX. And if you're from Tyneside, your chromosomes are YI. There you go. So it's all down to chromosomes, whichever way you dress it up. Also, Lisa said, loved listening to you on Night Owls, cuddled up with me grandma as a kid. Now I love listening to you as an adult. Long may you continue. Thank you kindly for that. Richard, having difficulty casting the TV. I hope you sorted that, because it's part of the kick, isn't it, to have everything up on the big screen. And also, Tasha was up at Loch Ness And I was in Ireland and also up in Scotland at a place called Elgin this week as well, doing stuff for Robson's World. But Tasha came back with a great picture because on the way back from Loch Ness, she visited Falkirk and those Kelpies late at night. Boom. Look at that. Come on. They're just magnificent, aren't they? Right next to the Falkirk Wheel as well. Now, Tasha told me a story about what happened there. And I don't know about you, but when people try and convert you to whatever their faith is, I always get that sinking feeling. You kind of go, oh, here we go. And usually it's people that don't even know, they haven't even read their own book, most of them. Genuinely, it's savagely shabby. And she was with one of our friends, Molly, who traveled across from the States, and they were having a lovely time. And these two, I think it was 3 guys, came up to them and said, are you religious? And Tasha's heart sank, as it would with many. But before she had a chance to say anything, her friend said, yes, we are. And then they said, do you want to come to church tomorrow? And then said, are you just friends or are you together? And then she said, oh, we're friends. And they said, oh, because that's good, because it would have been a problem. And, you know, this is just typical of religion in general terms. They're just not willing to accept people for being people, you know, and I think it would have been a problem. And Tasha was determined. She was on the verge of saying, oh, yes, we are, we're lovers or whatever. But hey, when it's at that time of night and you're in a foreign place, you just play it cool. You take no chances. It just really annoys me when people are like that. Incidentally, if you're wondering what Elgin looks like, you'd be really surprised. Look at that. It's just a bonny place. I took a couple of little shots. My favourite one. Look at that, Gothic. Wow. Very cool. Said to be haunted as well. So if ever I'm back up there again, I will be happy to give it another look. And forgive this, because I'm not sure what this one is. Oh, yeah, it's just Adam sent a picture in of his Night Owl's watch, which is pretty cool. I know it's retro now because it doesn't exist, but it's kind of cool in its way. I like it. Also, where else are we going? Peter, our archaeologist, tells me that those Pompeii folk were not turned to stone like Electric Light Orchestra sang for money. They were buried in a shower of pumice stones, and they died on the spot of the heat, and then they were covered in ash. Fascinating, which is why, because you would think if you were dying of heat, you'd be wriggling and writhing around, and they were. So how did they not just flop and then be lying flat and be dead? That's how, because they were covered in ash. Thank you for putting me right. Appreciate it. Steve from Germany. I mentioned the fact that Steve's partner was in hospital and he never bothered telling us how she was. Well, she's doing super. Thank you for all the love and the blessings. It brought tears to her eyes on hearing it. And I'm just glad that it's working out. That's cool. James, he just simply sends a message, oi, oi, Savaloy. Thank you very much. Chris and Jocelyn said, just love your blahs. Always full of cool stuff. And when asked anything, you're always straight as a die. That's rare these days. Well, thank you. Try my best. Alexander, missed you at the Great North Run. You always gave it an extra dose of atmosphere. Well, we decided this year that they have an awful lot of requirements with radio stations, national ones these days. And for various reasons, I was not being allowed to do everything that I thought I should be doing. And I politely asked if I could step down. So I've done decades with the Great North Run. Love it, love the people, love the event. It is one of the great glories of the Northeast that nobody does better. And I will continue to support it and love it. And there's no issue. We've got no issue with everything that's going on there. And I know people have been trying to stir the pot. Everything's cool. If it wasn't, I would tell you. Tasha already mentioned that. And she also ended up doing the Saturday, the 5 kilometer along the quayside run. And I never thought she'd ever do anything like that. So I'm very impressed. Gary, we have lost Henna. She's gone, but not forgotten. What a damn shame. I'm so sorry to you and yours, and send my love to everybody. Alistair went up Halidon Hill, where the battlefield was, and he says it's so disappointing. There's no information anyway. Normally they put these notice boards that tell you everything about it. He says, but it was very, very eerie. He says that you had a fabulous show on Wednesday, loved it. Now I've got Alistair's video, and I discovered last week that the fact that I talked the whole way through it didn't make any difference, because none of you heard a word, because when I play videos in this form, it's only the sound that's on them that you'll hear, and there's none. But here is, well, there's a little bit. This is Alistair doing his thing. Enjoy.
Hi, Alan. Went out yesterday to Halidon Hill. There was a famous battle there where the Scots met the English. The English was commanded by Edward III, who had 8,000 men. And Archibald Douglas commanded the Scottish army. He had 15,000 men. This was in the year 1333. The Scots claimed loads of casualties and fled. Archibald Douglas was killed, and that was that. But I've walked the battlefield. It's a bit disappointing because you can't actually get in the battlefield. It's all French stuff, but there's a walk, you can walk around the track and I'll take you in the loop anyway. So the video that you see, there's big hedges on the left-hand side is walking down the roads. That's the battlefield just over the hedge. I did about 2 kilometres, so I was very proud of myself. I was a bit tired when I got home, but thanks to you I plodded on, Alan. And I'll see you all next week.
There you are, on the outskirts of Berwick, literally 5-10 minutes by car outside of Berwick. One of the biggest battles back in those days. And Alistair did a great job. 2 kilometres, that's tremendous. That's keeping you, and I know you'd be lathered by the time you got back, but you've got to keep everything working and moving when you got Michael Parkinson's. As soon as you stop using stuff, it stops working altogether. So just remember that and keep on cracking on. And I know me working out every day, it is an absolute bitch, but it really, you will benefit from it in the long run. Very proud of you. Well done, Alistair. That's great. An old night owl girl popped up. Ashley sent a video in about radio stations. The old Metro, when It was independent in the early days, and happy days. Some of the days of the best radio, in my opinion, but I'm inevitably going to say that. Lee Maria said, great night last Wednesday in a separate text. Glenn saw his dead mother's ghost last Thursday, first thing in the morning. He said he hadn't been thinking about her the night before. There wasn't an anniversary or anything like that. Just completely out of the blue, wakes up in the morning and sees his mom standing over his bed, looking down at him. He got the fright of his life. He knows it was his mom, recognized, oh, it's your mom. And he said, Mom. And she just faded away. But she was there, keeping an eye on him. And why wouldn't you expect your family to physically do that kind of thing? Because kind of thing family would do if they can. Jonathan, great live. Oh, just talking about what we do. Great live entertainment, Alan. Hello from Burton-on-Trent. Good to hear from you. Tracy, she's watching in Doncaster. Eileen said, looking great. Oh, I great on a lot of people. And Dawn, about the Great North Run, you were a miss this year. It's not the same without you. John, not the same without your commentary. Lauren, you were always fantastic. A very welcome voice at the start line. Not the same without you, Alan. Thank you. Dave says, end of an era. Craig, you've been a great servant to the event. Leslie, never be the same again. Ray, you'll be a big miss. It's still the right thing to do. It's the right time. Yeah, you always go before somebody puts a boot up your backside, if you possibly can. Also, we're going to explain just a little bit about what's happening this coming Wednesday. We're putting on a repeat show on Wednesday. Tony's away on holiday. So I wanted to do something just different, to try something out. Now, I know an awful lot of you haven't ever experienced a Robson's World show. So one of our classic shows is on Robson's World. It's about a visit to a certain castle that we know fairly well, where I take 12 people who are skeptics to a haunted place. So what we're doing on Wednesday, first of all, you're going to get a repeat of a show that was one of my favorites, which was the Peel Tower in Corbridge. So that's going to be on first. And then immediately afterwards, there's going to be a 2-hour show of me putting 12 people into Chillingham Castle. They go in on their own. You hear what happens to them. And I'm essentially running around when I hear the screams. 12 people who don't believe in ghosts. They don't believe they exist. They refuse to believe and agree in it. And I say, well, let me know how you feel after a few hours in Chillingham Castle. That's what you're going to get this Wednesday. Then on Sunday, you will get, rather than a repeat, we're going to put the Twisel Castle show out on the Sunday. Next week, we've got something very special for you as well. So that's what's happening. So you're going to get an extra treat. Tony's on his holidays. We hope he has a lovely time. He's off. So that's what we're going to do. Now, beyond that, Adam says, the Great North Run organisers sent an apology around because they've used the River Wear on the Great North Run Winners' Medal. Well, not Winners' Medal, Runners' Medal. You see, I'm not working it for the first time in decades, and this happens. And Adam says, you see, soon as you leave, Alan, doing the loo, there you go. And as mistakes go, that's pretty kind of, whoa, it's fairly big one. Heather says, brilliant show last week, you guys. Good work. Stay safe. We will. Kevin, the Great North Run wasn't the same this year. You really were missed. And Dawn and Gary and John and Sonia, Karen, Lauren, Davey, Leslie, Craig, Ray, and everybody else, thank you very much indeed. Brian, I love the blah. And it reminded me of a very cool toilet, a Freddy Krueger-style toilet. He's a hero of mine. Problem is, Brian, you got your pictures in late today. Too late to get on this show. I'll put some on next week's show. Now, pictures and images, that we have a few. So let's get into one or two of them. There's so much stuff to talk about tonight. And we also will be going down your comments as well. Let's have a look at some of these images for you, because we always try and find you, we're the ghost historians. So yes, of course, we're going to cover ghost stories and anything to do with the paranormal or the weird or the peculiar and the historical or hysterical, depending on your viewpoints. Here we go. Who's that, you think? Any idea? That is a 15-year-old Marilyn Monroe. How about that? That's just like the ultimate photo, and it was inevitable. They just won the Eurovision Song Contest, and they came to Britain to try and get their name known. Then we've got this. Now, what do you think's happening here? She's being cited, given a ticket for obscenity because she was walking on a path near a beach dressed like that in the 1950s. I don't think it's too obscene. When the vast majority of women were told by their men that they should stay at home and they should cook the tea, and a lot of women didn't want that. We demand jobs. We happen to be git clever as out. This was Heinz ketchup factory in the old days, putting the labels on the jars, putting the lids on the jars with basic machinery from back in those kind of days, and hoping for a more improved machine. They wanted technology to catch up. And Charlie Chaplin, the biggest star of his day, said he was going to make an appearance in the street. And this is what happens when you're the biggest movie star of your generation. Look at that. Look at those crowds. And he, of course, has to stand on somebody's shoulders to do some of the madcap stunts. Now, there was a time when every house in Britain didn't have a letterbox. And in America, they decided that rather than have a postman having to knock on every door to hand post in, save time, get a mailbox. And they did. And we followed suit. I love these vehicles. You know, I talked about that Red Bull vehicle, and we've had a cup of coffee pot kind of vehicle. Here's another one selling cameras, being advertised for a company that used to belong to the family line of Linda Eastman, who became Linda McCartney. Imagine going to a fish shop and seeing that outside the fish shop. Today's catch. Hell's bells. It's a whopper. One of the world's earliest computers, 1960s. And you wore it on your wrist. And there it was. How about that? This is a man called Mr. Gatling. He invented a gun so you could kill more and more people. And let's face it, we've always been a society quite keen to do that. This is Christmas Day in the trenches of the First World War. Maybe just before McCartney started singing the Pipes of Peace, I'm guessing. Now, I don't know what you were like when you were a kid and you had a room of your own, and I had posters all over my wall and some out of magazines, rock bands and what have you, and posters of Hollywood stars or horror characters. I seem to remember having a Dracula and a Frankenstein and a Wolfman poster mixed along with Raquel Welch in A Million Years BC, showing more flesh than any woman ever had up until that point. It absolutely whiz-banged me through puberty, that. But if you went back to the 1800s, this is what you all looked like. Sexy pictures? Well, he's got one sexy picture of a woman on the left-hand side, a very large poster, but that's as much as it goes, but just interesting. And, you know, when somebody says, oh, he had a lot of birds on his wall, if you look directly above his head, yes, he did. This is a department store, one of the very first department stores in America, and that's how the staff had to dress. Don't dress like that in Lidl these days. However, that's Piggly Wiggly, one of their department stores back in the day. This is an early doors McDonald's drive-in, and not a drive-through, but a drive-in. And if that looked like that today, you'd go, wouldn't you? You'd park outside. You'd want to hear the jukebox and have a dance and stuff. This is Muammar Gaddafi, a day before he gets killed, rescuing his teddy bear from the bombing. You would never have thought to put those two things side by side. Now, a bit earlier, I said, who is this famous person? I'm going to ask again, who's this? Who's that? Somebody that most people love. I think she is fabulous. It's a very, very young teenage Dolly Parton. If you got that right, take my hat off to you. This is what kids just look like. Mothers had cloth on curtains that they could pull to one side and pull back around. My mum had similar. I was marginally cleaner in those days than that young fella is. This is underneath the Eiffel Tower back in the 1950s when you could drive up and park under it. Now it's all buy your tickets here kind of thing going on there. This is a very dark Victorian tube station. How about that? Back in the day. This is another one of those vehicles that sell things. Eat a plate of ice cream every day. Yeah. What type are you? Type 1 or type 2? Diabetes. Now, when it got really, really hot in the United States, people used to own a shop and they would live over the shop, but there was no air conditioning originally. So often they would come outside on the forecourt of their shop and they'd sleep outside where it was cooler. Imagine trying to do that these days. I think this is just great. What's spectacular about that, do you think? Now, that is not a rocket or a module. It's actually a milk churn, and it's fallen off the back of a cart traveling along that road. And it was too heavy to put back on the cart by the man who was driving the cart at the time. And the very night that it was left there, some people came out, painted on an American flag and wrote NASA in the United States on it. And it made the front pages of all the newspapers. Space module lands in Ohio. And it never did. It was a milk churn that fell off the back of a wagon. Brilliant. The speed to get out and do that, I take my hat off. It's like those people that make shill bottle look like shit bottle. To be able to do that without being seen, I give you credit for it. And I know the people of shill bottle hate it, but even so, how many of you had a milkman like this? There was a milk churn, and you didn't buy milk bottles. You could, but they were more expensive. Instead, you could bring your own little pail or bring your own little pot and fill up from the milk tap. How about that? That's special. Now, what do you think this is? This is a French lady taking a plunge, having a walk along a beach after the D-Day landings, when all of the ships that were bombed and stopped and shelled were still lying adrift or on sandbanks. What a time to live your life. Who's this? Again, we're talking, I suppose, back end of the Victorian era, possibly just into the early 1900s. It's a young man, a young politician trying to get on board a taxi cab, and his name is Winston Churchill. Is a very young man. Now, I love this. This is one of our seaside resorts from back in the day, but look at the ships. They're all tall ships back then. I think that's just fantastic. So from tall ships to the Niagara Falls during Victorian times. And I put this in just because it reminded me of my childhood, where down every back lane, people had their washing lines out and their sheets and their towels and their drawers and their trousers and shirts. And every now and then, if you had a really good shirt, you would never put it out on the washing line because you knew it would disappear. And all the kids were hanging out and the women or the young girls were playing two-baller and usually wearing their mum's high-heeled shoes, and you'd hear them scraping along the pavements. Amazing times. This is a team of female window cleaners. When all of the men were away at war, it was down to the women to get up them ladders, and they did. These are all boys under the age of 14 working down a pit. The youngest of those boys, 7, doing a full week of shifts down the mines. This is, you know, we talk about misogyny and sexism and all that kind of stuff. These are young girls being taught in school how to look after babies, because after all, it's a woman's job, and you would need to be to cook, to clean, look after houses, and breed and look after babies. And very, very weirdly, if you look to the far left, there's a woman whose face is being cut in half. That woman looks scarily like my mother looked when she was very young. I don't think it is, but hell's teeth. It really actually could have been. It does look very, very like her. And here, warning. Imagine you're driving along the road. Warning, escaped prisoner. Do not pick up hitchhikers. And it's written, signed by the US Penitentiary. Really? Drive a bit faster, Billy. This one's quite cool. They used to have massive chalkboards to tell you what the news was, because there was no such thing as electronics. This is at the New York Advertiser newspaper. They had a man who did nothing other than write things, and he's keeping people up to date about the sinking of the Titanic. You've probably never seen these two before, but if I say there are a couple of brothers who used to fly, it's the Wright brothers. I'd just never seen their faces before, so I thought I'd share them with you. Nothing outstanding other than imagine flying in the open air like that. Surely the wind would have blown his hat off. You'd have thought. This is a miner coming home for his dinner. There's a very, very famous painting in an Australian gallery of 5 naked miners arriving at somebody's house, and they were getting changed, and they were all completely jet black, covered in coal dust, except for one miner's penis, which was bright white. And the title of the painting says, Billy went home for his lunch. Which I thought was fantastic. This is Adolf Hitler visiting Napoleon's tomb. He didn't learn from one corporal's mistake. And Gavin says, what does the mummy look like in the Hancock Museum? Well, there's 2 there, but the main one is this character there. Well preserved. Got a lot of other stuff as well. I wanted to talk about this briefly. This is a shop called the Card Bar in the Handyside Arcade when it existed. This is Gordon, who used to own the Card Bar. You'd often see and have a chat with him and say, I'd love it if you could get a poster of Deep Purple for me. Card Bar also had badges for every kind of music, every kind of cult, every kind of belief system. Marijuana, leaves, eyeballs, had a little bit of everything. And there it is, Card Bar posters. Loved that shop. It's brilliant. At a time when posters were massive. This one, the plaque outside the Club of Go-Go, known as the home of the animals, with rock artists like the Rolling Stones, The Who, Cream, Pink Floyd, John Lee Hooker, and Jimi Hendrix. We've got a bit of a rocky background, don't we? This is West Indies House, a sailor's hostel. Over the years, we've had to beg people to come from the colonies to sail in our ships. And many came from the West Indies and gave up their lives there to help us out and get slagged off by stupid people who were racist. This is inside the Handyside Arcade. I performed a few gigs in there and a lot of bands we put on in there. That one certainly wasn't one of mine. Don't know who it is, but it brought out the people in their flowery shirts. And I was one of those who also wore the flowery shirts of the day. I certainly did, with me long ginger hair, me John Lennon glasses. That's not me, but I did have a shirt very like the guy on the right-hand side. It's no surprise I got chinned a bit by skinheads back in the day. This is the old flesh market, just along from the quayside, or just before you get to the quayside officially. And that's what it looked like. I had a few of you mentioning how much you like the photos of old Newcastle. That's the Handyside Arcade back in the day. This is Newcastle's Tyne Bridge, which of course was where the swing bridge is now, just after the Great Flood had broke it down. And you see the buildings on the bridge with an avenue down the centre for carts and carriages. And this is in the exhibition park. Where the lake is now, there used to be a bridge taking you all the way across to the museum on the other side. The Simpson shop on the end. Only your nana would know that. They're building a bridge over the Tyne. And you see how few other bridges there are at that point. Fantastic. This is the quayside as well, with the tall ships. Sunday morning on Newcastle Quay. And they have the market, and there's people performing. You see the big square right at the very bottom of your screen. Other people trying to buy from the various trade stalls. And this, again, another look at the glory that is the northeast of England. Coming up from the quayside, the Dean Street. Back in olden days with carts and carriages. And this is another artist's depiction of the Black Gate Museum. Hasn't changed much, has it, in all those years? And this was at the bottom of Granger Street. And you see how people with carriages and carts and people selling stuff out of baskets. Fascinating. This is old Newcastle Jail. Market Street, this used to be. Market Street. This is a street party celebrating the end of the First World War. They're in Waka. There's an old street lamplighter from back in the day. And also, I did say that we would mention a time when I gathered with 1 million of you, actually slightly more, on Newcastle Quayside. Now, after the millennia, you know, the night of the millennium when we cut into the 2000s, I was asked to go down and set up a massive road show with singers and bands. And then for the last 2 hours into midnight and up till 2 a.m, I was on the radio live doing a dance party. And everybody was dancing. I had the quayside rocking for 4 hours on the night of Millennium Eve. And I thought, well, there's going to have to be photos of it. And there are. Have a look at this. That's a bit of the Tyne Bridge you can see in the top left-hand corner. Now, this was at one end of the quayside, and there was that many people all the way to the other end where my stage was, but we had speakers halfway along the quayside so that everybody could join in and dance and party hardy. That was just along from where the stage happened to be. And at midnight, it all went off. And there was people on both sides of the river and people across every bridge. Just an amazing, very, very spectacular and special event. So that's that. What else have we got? Yeah, I think we should take a look at some comments now as well. Let's first of all, I think I've got to come out of one to go to another. Just click that. We're back, and let's have a look at if there's any massive comments from you guys. I always look where the most writing is. David, evening, everybody. After a very stressful few weeks, I found out on Friday that my job is safe. I'm no longer at risk of redundancy. It is such a relief. Fantastic news. Great to hear. Jeanette, not been a good day for me. My daughter moving out at the weekend and my grandson started full-time nursery. I've looked after him since he was 9 months old and now he's 2. You should be proud. You've done it. You deserve a little bit of, you'll not know what to do with yourself, I understand, but you deserve a little bit of time for yourself. And you've got to have time to grow and have something to talk about. No, it's going to be good. It's all going to be good. Hit the like button, everyone. Show your support for the Ghost Historian. Thank you very much, Lee Maria. Loyal, steadfast, and true. Bless her. And hang on, Lee Maria again. Anybody interested from the Northeast who would like to go to locations that Alan's been to, please let me know. She's going to try and create a splinter group. And as I say, I've got no qualms about it at all. It's actually quite a cool idea because we might go somewhere and get nothing, and you might go there and get everything because it literally is like a coconut shy. You don't hit a coconut every shot. Karen, I live in South Yorkshire, but go to Newcastle a fair bit. I would like to take part. Oh, you see, it's already starting to gather. And why not? Tremendous. Callum, Alan, you were missed on Sunday. Great North Run, not the same without you. I might have done better than the 127 with you. 127 is amazing, Callum. Superstar. Well done. And thank you. Thank you so very much. My Secret Life. Very nice to meet you all. Why YouTube recommended me this, but I'm quite pleased. Well, we're glad to have you with us any which way you got there. The uninvited guest. On the Great North Runners medals, it has a picture of the city of Sunderland, which is, it's really funny. I think somebody connected with the organization just thought, I'm from Sunderland. I'll do this as a joke. So he puts the wrong template on and then nobody notices it. So he just keeps quiet and giggles a lot. That's what I think's probably happened there. Gary, love the history pics. It's better education than the crap I endured at Writing Comp in the 80s. Yeah, because this great cool stuff happened. And I agree with you. The history that I got at school was like, yawn. Margaret, that's great, Karen. At the Birmingham Museum, they had an Egyptian exhibition of Egyptian artifacts. There was a necklace that belonged to a queen. As I looked at it, I found it was very spooky. Oh, there you go. And I think that's pretty much them. Thank you very much. A lot of interaction amongst yourselves. Colleen, last week you mentioned people with syphilis. As soon as she said that, I already knew I was on a slippery slope. Who else had it? She says. What? Not you, question mark. That would have been a sore point. A lot of famous, very famous people have had syphilis, okay? And I wrote down just a few for you. Beethoven, Cleopatra, Christopher Columbus, Al Capone, James Cook, Queen Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, Hitler, King Herod, Julius Caesar, Mary Queen of Scots, Mussolini, Oscar Wilde, and of course, that famous Russian, Rocha Khrushchev. He definitely have it. And as soon as I came up with Rocha Khrushchev, it made me instantly think of the midget Indian firewalker, Sinji's Thing, and the Indian karaoke star, Gerupta Singh, or the Soviet man who had 3 balls, Hujanika Nakarov. Anyway, they're easy. I know, easy. Robson's World. Oh, let's quickly dive onto Robson's World. We've got a couple of corkers this week for you to think about. One of them is this, The Witch's Claw. It's out this week. I was invited to go to a place that I'd never been before in Britain, the city of Leicester. Never been before. And you discover that it's an absolute heartland for witches. And you find out about the story of Black Annis, the Bosworth witches, Peppermint Billy, the Bell Giant, and the cave that was once covered in skinned children's skin. I mean, it's just a cracking set of stories, and it's out on Robson's World this week. And the other one is this, eventually, the world's greatest cons. I think the internet has made it incredibly easy to steal money from people, to con people out of their money. And this show lasts 6.5 hours long. So you can listen to it across a week, or when you're out driving in your van or your wagon or whatever. Selling the Eiffel Tower, selling the Statue of Liberty, selling incredible things, and people gullible enough or maybe greedy enough to want to buy all of these things. It is fascinating and really a couple of corking shows. So watch out for them. Go on to Robson's World. We've got a massive library in there now. You really should take a look at it. Gordon mentions me at the Great North Run and just says, Mr. Northeast. You're very, very kind. Now, don't forget, Wednesday, the Peel Tower, and then an audio ghost show. We've got an image for the screen as well, because we know you like all of that. But bottom line is, it's a 2-hour special as a thanks to all of you for taking part, and to cover the fact that Tony's away, I wanted to put something special on. And I've been toying with the idea of it. So if it works, you might get 1 or 2 more. So we're going to Chillingham as well. And then on Sunday, Twisel Castle Show, just so that you know what's going on, and that will happen. Now, because I'm not going to give you a clue or clues for where we're going, because we can't until next week, realistically, next week's blah, I thought that I would share something that's kind of personal to me. It's very personal to me. When my dad passed, and as you know, both my parents passed due to Alzheimer's, that was part of their condition. But with my dad, I had a very strange relationship with my dad, because my dad was one of these people that was hard as nails and didn't show love very much. And I managed to catch him at a time when he was coherent and cogent and knew what he was doing, to tell him that I loved him for the first time in my life, because we'd always kind of fought. We'd always been in each other's faces a bit. And I knew that he wanted to have his ashes scattered in Scotland. He has a feeling about Scotland, as I do. I just feel that I should be there. I know I'm borders now, but I feel that I should be immersed in Scotland. I can't explain it any more than that. But you got to remember, Scotland used to go down to Yorkshire. So we're all part of the same brood. And I've been overseas a little bit. Oh, I know. I don't know whether I was overseas this last week. I'm not going to tell you where I went, because I'm going to let you. So this is the competition tonight. Where was I this week? It's painted on the side of a house. So is this. So is this. And this divides the town. I was doing a show for Robson's World there this week. And also, when I wasn't there, I was where I pointed you to before. I was there. And the weird thing was, and the thing I'm going to leave you with, when I was carrying my dad's ashes up to a place called Fort William, I was actually on my way to Loch Ness to go under the water in Loch Ness. You might remember the show that we did, borrowing an underwater suit from one of their special companies that do that kind of thing in Fort William. And that was a place that my dad loved. So I decided to go down to the quayside and scatter his ashes into the sea at Fort William. And the second that I did, there was a massive rainbow, but in the center of the rainbow, right in the very middle of the rainbow, there was this little blackness. And to me, and maybe just because I wanted it to be, it was like an image of somebody in the middle of the rainbow, right in the center. Wow. And I wanted to believe it was me dad. Was it? Probably not. in my heart it was. And that's all that kind of counted, because we had a kind of bittersweet relationship, my dad and I. But ever since that day, because of that rainbow, every time that there's a rainbow anywhere about, Jen will say, "There's your dad." And I was in a place where I had to make a particularly big decision this past week. And I went for some petrol. And I videoed while I was filling. I couldn't leave the pump because I was pumping at the time petrol into the vehicle, because obviously you've got to cover a hell of a lot of distance to get to these places, because it's about 5.5, 6 hours from the Scottish borders further up north. So it's a canny run. So I'm at a petrol station, and this happened. And I send this to each and every one of you with love and a blessing, because whenever you see something like this, you're said to think about the people that you love and wish them good health and a blessing. Ancient pagan thing to do, but it's something that I always do. And I thought of the very few people that are extra special to me, and you guys fit into that category. So I thought of you. So this is the last thing for tonight. Thanks for being with me as always. And until this weekend with our double-barreled special, you have to stay tuned for that last 2 hours. You'll love it. Proper old school ghost hunt, the real deal. Don't miss it. And the difference between taking somebody that's done ghost hunts and they're to ghost hunts, you don't get freaked as much anymore because you're so used to it. Take 12 people that have never been to a scary place before. It's a blast. You'll enjoy it. But for each and every one of you, this is me at a petrol station a couple of days ago. Enjoy. How about that? Right next to the travel lodge. Anyway, there you go. So that's it from me. Good night. God bless you. And I wish you well. Till next time. Goodbye, everybody. We're gone. Bye-bye. Oh, end of stream.